Costa Mesa, California is a beautiful coastal city overlooking the Pacific Ocean. This is also the second home of Julie Kibushi's family. Julie was born on Valentine's Day in 1987. She is the third child in a family of 4 children. Julie's parents are Japanese American. She is often called Little Valentine. Since she was a child, Julie has loved dancing and music. People's first impression of Julie is a cheerful, lovely girl who always makes others laugh. People often say that they always feel positive when they are around Julie. After graduating from Orange County High School of the Arts, Julie continued to study fashion design at community college. Here, she met Herr, 26 years old, and the two soon became close friends. After school, Julie often stayed at school to tutor Sam in high school. Herr was born on May 29, 1983, in Los Angeles. He is the only child of Steve and Raquel. Sam is a big, muscular man, but his friends often call him Teddy Bear because of his cheerful and easygoing personality.
You're too scared. Say something to the camera. Goodbye, camera.
After graduating from high school, Sam joined the army and was deployed to Afghanistan to fight the Taliban terrorists. Three years later, Sam was discharged and returned to his hometown in Southern California. He attended community college with the intention of joining the army as an officer after graduation. There, Sam met Julie, who was 5 years younger than him. Like many other soldiers who participated in the war, after returning from Afghanistan, Sam suffered from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Sam often had dreams about life-and-death situations in the war and became panicked. Sometimes he also had problems with anger management and depression. However, Sam was a strong-willed person. He had goals in life and always tried his best to achieve them. Sam's life was going great until May 21, 2010, when the Costa Mesa Police Department received an emergency call.
Costa Mesa 911.
There's a body in my son's apartment.
There's a what?
A body. A dead body.
A dead body?
There's victim sexual activity. She's dead. There's blood in her head.
There was blood from her head?
Yeah. Honey, I don't know what to say.
Do you know where your son is?
No, I don't. I don't.
The caller was Steve, Sam's father. Steve and Raquel became worried when they couldn't reach their son. Sam had promised to come to their house for dinner, but he didn't show up. This was so strange that Sam's parents rushed to his apartment to check. They had imagined all sorts of bad scenarios, but they never expected the horrifying scene they were about to see behind the door. Steve found a dead woman lying face down in the bedroom. Her clothes were torn and blood was on her forehead. The police arrived immediately. Sam's apartment looked normal. No signs of disturbance. It was a clean apartment, no signs of a struggle. There was a barbecue and empty beer bottles on the balcony, but it looked relatively neat. Everything was completely different when the police entered the bedroom. The mattress in the room was soaked with blood. The dead woman was lying partly on the bed and partly on the floor. She had been shot in the head at close range. Her pants were pulled down, and she was half naked. She was wearing a crown on her head, and the back of her shirt read, "All your." Although the forensic examination has not been done, based on the scene, the police believe that the girl was sexually assaulted and then murdered. There were several books about war in the bedroom, one of which was called The Wonders of Sex. There was also a knife on the small table next to the bed, but it did not appear to have been used. In the kitchen, the police found a handbag. In this handbag, they found the girl's identification papers. Her name was Julie Kibushi. Since the police could not find any trace of Sam, his passport and car were also missing. Based on the circumstances of the scene, the police believed that Sam had fled after killing Julie. The police's suspicions were further increased when they found text messages on Julie's phone. At around 2:45 p.m., On May 21st, 2020, Julie received a text message from Sam saying that he was going out to help a friend, and then he would go to his parents' house for dinner. However, a few hours later, Sam texted Julie again and begged her to come to his apartment. It seemed that Sam was having a bad day and really needed Julie to come see him. The police thought that it was possible that Sam was haunted by the war in Afghanistan, and in a panic, he raped and murdered Julie. After the police investigated Sam's profile further, they were almost certain that he was the culprit. 8 years earlier, in 2002, when Sam was 19, he had been accused of driving a friend, Dennis, to a vacant lot where a gang of gangsters had been waiting and shot Dennis to death. Sam maintained his innocence and had nothing to do with the gang. He was eventually acquitted. However, this had only strengthened the police's suspicions, and they immediately issued a warrant for Herr's arrest. Sam was believed to be a highly trained and dangerous armed criminal. The police mobilized all forces to catch him. Investigators also began monitoring Sam's cell phone and credit card activities. They received information that Sam's bank card had been used to withdraw money on 4 different occasions at ATMs on the day he disappeared. The police immediately checked the security cameras at the ATMs, but they could not believe what they saw. The person withdrawing money was not Sam, but a young man wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap. Sam's parents did not know who he was. Investigators believe that he was most likely withdrawing money on Sam's behalf and helping him escape. On May 26, 2010, while the police were searching for the young man at the ATM, they received a tip that Sam's credit card had been used again at a pizza shop in Long Beach, California, about 20 miles away. The police immediately went to the shop and tracked down the pizza delivery address. They sent a task force to the house in the hope of catching Sam there. However, after entering, they only found 17-year-old Wesley Freelish and some of his friends there. Wesley turned pale when he saw the police, but he seemed clueless about what was going on. Wesley told the police a story they did not expect. Wesley admitted that he was the one who used Sam's bank card to withdraw money from the ATM, but he did it for a friend, Daniel Wozniak, aka Dan. Wesley said that he withdrew a total of $1,900 for Dan. The name Daniel sounded familiar to the police in the investigation team, as if they had seen this name somewhere. It turned out that the police had found a wedding invitation in Sam's apartment, which was an invitation to the wedding of Dan and his fiancée, Rachel. So what was the relationship between Dan and Sam? Was he an accomplice or just a friend who was helping Sam escape? The police began to look into Dan's profile. Daniel Wozniak, born on March 23, 1984, was the youngest of 3 sons. Dan often spent time with his grandparents because his parents were busy with work. Dan grew up in a wealthy family, and the whole family often went on expensive vacations. Dan loved the arts, especially dancing and singing. Since the age of 20, he has worked for the theater as a musical actor. Dan was passionate about performing on stage and had a natural talent.
Here's a place where I have never been.
You came here because I know you better than any other person.
And you will be my true love.
Dan's job actually only brought in an average income, but he had been used to a life of indulgence and spending lavishly since childhood, so Dan struggled financially to pursue his lifestyle. However, Dan's life seemed to be okay. He still maintained his passion for acting and worked for many years in the theater. Here, Dan met the woman of his life, Rachel, an actress in the same theater. The two were engaged and were about to get married in a few days. Dan and Rachel lived in the same apartment complex as Sam. They were both neighbors and friends, often going to each other's houses to party. Dan was in the middle of his bachelor party when the police raided him. His face was pale when he was arrested. At the police station, Dan confessed that his only crime was participating in a credit card fraud scheme and covering up for Sam. He said that Sam and he had planned to withdraw all the money from Sam's bank account to trick the insurance company and the bank into thinking that he had been robbed. However, after carrying out the plan, Sam went to Dan's house and confessed that he had killed Julie in a fit of rage. Sam threatened and coerced Dan into helping him escape. Dan helped Sam by driving him to a local shopping mall and dropping him off there. Dan insisted that he did not know where Sam was. Dan's story was full of holes and inconsistencies. Every time he was questioned, Dan added a new piece of information to his story. Why would Dan drive Sam to a shopping mall, a crowded place with security cameras? The police also found that Sam had about $62,000 in his account, so it was difficult to understand why he would commit credit fraud while still being financially well off. Clearly, Dan's story was suspect. Julie's autopsy revealed that she had suffered 2 separate gunshot wounds, while the police only found 1 gunshot wound to the back of her head. This led the police to suspect Dan of being an accomplice in Julie's murder. Dan insisted that he had nothing to do with Julie's death, because he was sure that the police would not find his DNA on the victim's body. Although Dan admitted that he had been to Sam's house a few days before and used the bathroom, it was possible that his DNA was left in the apartment. Dan thought he was done and released, but in fact he had become the #1 suspect. What the police needed to do now was find Sam and determine the relationship between Dan and Sam in this case. Rachel, Dan's fiancée, was shocked to hear that Dan had been arrested. Their wedding was scheduled for 48 hours, but it looked like it would never happen. Rachel had to call her family to tell them the bad news. When Rachel called Dan's brother, Timothy, all her hopes were dashed. Timothy told her that a few days earlier, Dan had asked him to get rid of a backpack, but instead, Timothy threw it over his parents' fence and left. Rachel decided to go to the police to report it. On the way, she called Dan, who was in custody.
I just talked to Tim, and I need to make a phone call to the detective now.
Why?
Because Tim's involved.
Because of what?
I need to call the detective first before they catch me on this recording device, because it looks like I'm not trying to tell him right away. Tim says he has evidence with him.
Then I'm doomed.
Do you know that Tim had some evidence?
Yeah. God, oh God, oh God. Tim did speak up.
Only to me so far, and it was in passing. I said, I'm going to the police station right now. Danny's been arrested. He starts freaking out, and he was really frantic, and something slipped that he had evidence.
No, don't. That can't be found.
No, babe, I'm going to do it.
Now I'm dead. Now I'm really dead.
Baby, you're already dead.
I was trying to cover it up, and now I'm going away for life. I have to tell the truth on what I did. And I think you now know what it is. And it's bad. Imagine the worst, and that's what I did.
Dan was in a panic when he heard the phone call from Rachel. He begged Rachel not to call the police, but she refused. Sam knew his play was over and rushed to the police to confess.
You said you wanted to talk to me. What's going on?
I'm crazy and I did it.
You did what?
I killed Julie and I killed Sam.
Okay. Tell me how you killed Sam.
2 shots using my father's gun that I had.
And your motive behind killing Sam was?
Money and insanity.
Money and insanity. Okay.
Dan said that on May 21st, 2010, Dan asked Sam to go to the theater to help him move some boxes. After Sam turned his back to carry the box in the attic, Dan pulled out a gun and shot Sam straight in the head. Sam fell to the floor, but was still conscious. He didn't know what was going on, so he begged Dan to help call an ambulance. Without hesitation, Dan shot him again.
I told him that I needed to move some stuff from the theater. I said, you need to bend down and help me lift this thing up. And when he bent down, I grabbed the gun. I never really fired the gun before, so I pulled it back and I shot him.
After that, Dan used Sam's phone to text Julie. Dan knew that Sam and Julie had a close relationship, so he could easily lure Julie to Sam's apartment. Dan hid Sam's body in the attic and continued to perform the play Loving that afternoon, as if nothing had happened. On the evening of May 21st, Dan continued to text Julie using Sam's phone. When Julie was waiting in front of Sam's house, Dan came over and said that Sam was busy with something, so he asked him to open the door for Julie. Julie also knew Dan, so she didn't suspect anything. After entering the house, Dan asked Julie if she wanted to see something interesting in Sam's bedroom. As Julie innocently bent down, he pulled out a gun and shot her twice in the head. He then stripped her of her clothes to make it look like she had been sexually assaulted.
Okay. Is there anything that you said to Julie prior to shooting her?
No, I didn't. I got her in. I was downstairs in my apartment. I was still text messaging.
That was Sam's phone you were using?
Yes.
Okay.
Sam's phone.
What sort of text messaging were you doing back and forth?
I was saying, you need to come over tonight. You need to come over tonight.
What did you say to Julie?
Julie was wearing like a crown tiara. She had just come from her brother's. I had said, like, Sam had just called me and he was going through some stuff. She said, yeah, me too. I said, well, I have a key. Let's go in. I opened the door. I let us in. And then I just went to the bathroom real quick because I was really nervous. Loaded the gun again.
And?
Went back out into the hallway and then said, oh, by the way, did you see this in Sam's bed? And I said, lean over, look at it right there. When she was leaned over, I put 2 bullets in the back of her head.
Okay. Why did you feel you had to kill Julie? What was the rationale behind that?
I was going crazy.
No, but seriously.
Seriously, to cover up Sam. And so
why? How would that cover up Sam?
To make it look like he was on the run and he did it.
He was the one that did it.
Right.
Dan's motive for the crime was money and greed. He was deeply in debt, but still wanted a big wedding and a lavish honeymoon abroad. Dan was 2 months behind on rent and was about to be evicted. After learning that Sam had $62,000 in government compensation for his time serving in the war in Afghanistan, Dan hatched a dark plot. Not only did he take the lives of 2 innocent people, he also planned to rob Sam of his honor, making people think of him as a rapist and a heartless murderer. Dan's crime was even more horrifying. After killing Sam, Dan dismembered Sam's body so that the police could not identify him. Dan put Sam's head and hands in a trash bag and buried them in a nearby park, while the rest of his body remained in the attic of the theater. The police found Sam's body on his birthday. His face and body parts were so disfigured that they were unrecognizable. The only thing that helped the police identify Sam's body was a tattoo on his chest that read, "Mom and Dad." It's hard to imagine how devastated Sam's parents were when they came to claim their son's body. The police also found a backpack that Dan's brother had thrown away. The backpack was filled with incriminating evidence against Dan, including Sam's bloody clothes, the murder weapon, bullet casings, and more. The police had everything they needed to convict Dan. On December 16, 2015, Dan was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. However, the case did not end there. A few years later, investigators discovered that Dan's ex-fiancée, Rachel, knew about the murder plot and gave false statements to mislead the investigation. Rachel denied all of these allegations, but on September 12, 2018, Rachel was convicted of lying to the police and sentenced to 32 months in prison. However, after a few months in prison, Rachel successfully appealed and was released in 2019. Rachel has appeared on many TV shows and asserted her innocence, but to this day, this is still a controversial issue. What do you think about the details of this case? Leave a comment below to let us know. Please subscribe to the channel, like or share the video to help us have the motivation to do more new cases. Thank you for watching today's video. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.